Good morning and welcome back to the farm. So we got our chickens back yesterday. If I get to talking, it kind of scares the birds a little bit. So we got our chickens back yesterday. I got 4 houses, 30,000 birds in each house. And so I'll be keeping these birds for about 35 days. I'm gonna try to do a little clip of something going on with the chickens, or just show you the chickens every day throughout this flock. So starting now, you see, yesterday was actually day 1 since the birds were brought in yesterday. But I'm gonna do a little video every single day so you can kind of see the progression of a flock up until my next catch out, which will be in about 35 days. So hope y'all enjoy this video. Maybe I can show y'all some stuff that comes up, some stuff we do, little things here and there that are going on. Just bring you along on what growing out a flock of birds is like. So like I said, these birds were brought out yesterday morning. We dumped them in the houses. You can see this morning they're very active, running around. They hear me talking, getting a little more active. Every morning, one of the first things I do is I go through every one of my houses, check my feed, my fans, my vents. Right now, fans are just cycling, so it's about 90 degrees in the house. It's about 70 degrees outside. Humidity's up, out, trying to keep the humidity down. As you can see, so I've got heat running. My fan just kicked on. So right now my fans run for about a minute, and then they cut off for about 4 minutes. As the birds get older, the environment in here changes. I'll make adjustments to that, add more fans, more run time. Eventually these fans will get to where they're running continuously more and more. So it's gonna be one of those flocks where start out, it's not real hot, but by the time we end it, it's gonna be really hot. So I'm gonna go through here shortly, walk every one of my houses 2 times. Any birds that were delivered not alive or that died from yesterday till this morning, I'll take those out. We also do some light culling, so if there's a bird that you look at and you just know, all right, this bird's not gonna live, I need to go ahead and cull this one, we'll do that as well. But I want to do some walking through, checking on everything. Vents in here are good, feed looks good. Right now I've got my feed set up on programs, so every several hours my feed runs. I do that for about the first 13 or 14 days until I raise my feed lines up, which I can show y'all in about 14 days. And then that's just to help prevent the chickens from wasting too much feed and just having an overabundance of feed put out. So these water lines look just a little bit low. So I went to the winch and just raised them up a little bit. At this age, I really want the nipples about at eye level for the birds. I don't want them having to reach to get the water. In a few days, I'll get them up on a little bit more to where they're drinking at more of an angle. If you run your water lines too low, you'll wind up having a lot of water go down on your floor. So for right now, they're at eye level, but pretty soon I'll bring those on up so they're drinking more at like a 45-degree angle. Day 3 with the chickens. So today's Thursday and these birds came in on Tuesday. I've upped my run time a little bit. I'm actually running one 57-inch fan in the back of my chicken houses, a 36-inch fan in the back of my chicken houses, and a 36-inch fan in the front of my chicken houses. I've had just a little bit of ammonia. We did put down PLT, but it was put down at a summer rate. I mentioned, I think, in another video, I didn't crust. All I did was roll my litter and then spread it back out. Luckily, it's warm outside and I can run a lot of run time without having to run a bunch of brooders. Here's the birds. they've really been enjoying these paper trays that we put down. So we didn't put a whole lot of paper trays down in the front. May should have done some more. So we ended up going through today and just adding a little bit more feed to some of those. So far the birds look pretty good. The one house that I have the youngest hen flock birds in, the 26-week-old hen flock, right now they're behind, which is expected. So far in this house, day 1, we picked up 111 birds, and day 2, 112, which is pretty good. So everything's cruising along. I just finished, after lunch, I usually go through each house and just kind of check on everything, see if I need to make any feed adjustments, ventilation adjustments, that sort of thing. At this age, as long as everything's working right, all the motors, fans, drinkers, all that stuff is working right, you kind of can put them on cruise control as long as you don't have any big weather events going on. But so far, everything's looking good. So every now and then we'll have a water line nipple start leaking, and I was walking through this morning and one of them looks like it was hung or something's going on. This is actually one. In this house I have cups under my drinkers. That helps to keep water off the floor. The cup is actually gone here, but you can see. Something's going on with that nipple there, so I've got a new one. I'm gonna change it out. I got that nipple changed out. It's good to go. One thing about chickens is if you have somewhere in your house where you have a water leak or some water coming out, the birds are gonna go to it, especially at this age. They're gonna wind up getting soaked. They might pile on it, wind up dying. So leaks like that, which that one's not bad, but if you have a bad leak, you're likely to lose several baby chicks. This is my house here that I talked about. I've got some of the 26-week-old hen flocks. I'll show you my mortality so far. We're on day 3. By day 3 is usually when you have your starve outs, which are your birds that don't find the feed or the water for whatever reason. So these are my 3-day numbers. That's a little higher than what I like to see. Some of my other houses started out in the hundreds and are down under 100 now, which is much better. But I'm hoping that these start trending downward after today. So today is 1 week since I got my birds back. Everything's looking pretty good so far. Hadn't been a lot going on other than going through it every day, picking them up, still feeding them on the timers. All the feed stuff is still the same. Those extra trays that we put out, they've been empty for a couple days now, and we've just got them in the houses. My serviceman did come out today. He went through the houses, so I was just sitting here going over the report. But one thing I noticed that I'll mention to you, I've talked before about some of the young hen flocks in my house one. Had some younger ones. So far in that house, I have lost or culled 1,106 birds. It's 3.75%. That's kind of high. My other houses, I'm in the 500 to 600 range. So they're in the upper 1% or low 2%. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what you're working with when you get those young hen flocks. I have a note on here: cull off-size birds in house 1 to improve uniformity. When you go in the houses, you like to see uniform birds, but when you have some of those 26-week-old hen flocks, you got a lot of different size birds in there. But I'm gonna go through and just do some checks. We just had a pretty good storm roll through, but everything's looking great so far. So hopefully these birds are off to a great start. We'll be selling these probably mid-July. I'm gonna try to keep doing some daily videos, and before long we'll be doing some of our feed stuff, transitioning from the starter feed part of the flock to the grower feed. My birds always tend to hang out down there towards the tunnel end. See, there's more birds down that way, and so that zone will usually end up running a little bit warmer. So I always wind up putting in a fence in the front just to keep some of those birds back out of the tunnel. That fence will probably be going up in a couple days. I'm not quite ready to put it up yet, but it'll go up soon. I did increase my run time about 2 days ago. So I've been running, started out with a 48 and a 36-inch fan, and then I added another 36-inch fan. But a couple days ago, I ended up going to 2 48s. It's a lot warmer even in the evenings, and we've had a lot of rain here, which means a lot of humidity. And so I'm trying to get more airflow in these houses. If you cut back on your airflow or you don't have enough, the floors in here really start caking up. The litter gets a little sticky, and you really want to keep the floors in the best condition you can as long as you can in a flock. So the birds are growing. Today is day 11. Just finished going through and picking up, culling a few birds, getting the dead up. They're getting bigger. We're still on our starter feed. I went through yesterday and I started turning up these spouts. So some of those trays are starting to break apart. They were starting to spill some feed. As the birds get older, if you have feed in trays like that, they scratch a lot more out. You waste it. It's not good on your feed conversion. So these were down like that. You just flip them up and it quits running feed out. I still have my feed pans let all the way down. They're in the flood position. I'll do that until I'm out of starter feed, which is usually around day 14, day 15. So what I'll do once I run out of starter feed is I'll actually raise those feed pans up a little bit. It closes that window and then the feed comes out of the bottom. I can show you all that in a couple days. But if you start running out your grower feed, which is more of a pelletized feed, with them down like this, they really start scratching out that feed. So that's why we raise them up then, but I like to wait until I'm out of my starter feed before I do that. I'm gonna go through today and close off these in the front. So I've got one house of the Turbo Mate 2s, and all our other houses we have the Turbo Grows. I'm gonna close off the Turbo Grows tomorrow, but today I'm gonna go ahead and do these. These are a little more likely to start getting litter in them. You can see a little bit. I feel like since I just rolled my litter and didn't crush though, that they actually did a lot better. Usually I'm having to turn these off by like day 7 or 8, but my litter is not as fine, and so I think that has actually helped with that. Don't know that for sure, but this is the second flock in a row that I've been able to leave these down longer, which just gives the birds more access to more feed longer to give them a better start. But I'm gonna go through and close those off. They just have a little slide on them. Just close them up like that, and then they'll eat the feed out of there. I usually give them a day or so, and then once they've eaten the feed out, I can flip those up and they'll sit like that on top of the feed line for the remainder of the flock. This is my handy dandy gadget that I use to keep from having to bend over. So what I'll do is, you gotta watch your head though for brooders. I just walk down one side and back down the other, getting all those turned off. Another thing I'll show you, and this is one of the reasons why I don't like the waterline paper. You can see it starts caking up. Now we'll look under my other water line. So that's one of the reasons why I really don't like the waterline paper, is because it creates that caked up litter underneath your water lines, and then that just leads to possibly getting wet later on in the flock. One of the main things that you want to try to do with your chickens is keep your floors as dry and clean as possible. I'm gonna finish closing all these off, and then either tomorrow or the next day, I'm gonna turn off all my other turbo feeders, as well as turn all these up. And then I'll start transitioning from the mealtime feeding, which is feeding, I'll run these feed lines 30 minutes at a time, 5 to 6 times a day. As I'm turning off feed, I'll usually increase it. And then once I raise those feed lines up, I'll go to full feeding all the time. I got all my feed turned off in the front. Right now you can see, maybe you can see, I've got 2 48s and a 36 running in the back. Those have come on to running full time now. The vents are open pretty good. There's some decent airflow in here. It's probably upper 70 degrees outside. My controller says it's 82.4 outside. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not. My set point is 82.7. My controller says it's day 12, 11 days old, because the day that they come in, the controller says day 1. But it's about 84.7 degrees average throughout the house. As it warms up today, I'll have more and more fans come on. I don't expect them to go into tunnel yet, but I did see some like mid 90 degree weather next week, which will probably send the birds into tunnel and run more fans. And then eventually I'll be running cool cells, but I really don't run my cool cells until probably the 4th week, if that. But we're moving along. We have a couple dry days lined up. So we've had rainstorms just about every day, but the forecast is showing some drier weather. I bet a lot of people are cutting hay. We don't have any to cut right now, but I'll be back in a little bit to check on the birds, and I'll keep y'all updated. These birds will be 2 weeks old tomorrow. It's time to finish turning off all the feed. You may notice it looks a little bit darker in here. As I get close to running out of my starter feed, my lights down the center are turned off. Tomorrow, these outside lights that you see will actually start dimming. So as we get farther along in a flock, it's not as bright inside the chicken houses. For the first roughly 2 weeks, we want it pretty bright though. We want those chicks eating a lot of feed, drinking a lot of water, getting off to a great start. So I already showed you the spouts were turned up, and then I turned off my Turbo Mate 2s in my house number 1. All my other houses have the Turbo Grow. You can see a little bit there. There's a little bit more feed wasted than what we have been seeing. These birds are getting a little bit bigger, and so they just tend to waste a little bit more when they're in the flood. So it's getting close to time to get these raised up. The set point is currently 81.7. It's 86.2 degrees in here. I've got 4 tunnel fans running. For the past, I think, 2 days, the houses have actually gone into tunnel. It's been pretty warm, getting close to 90 degrees. So when they go into tunnel, all these side vents that you see are closed, and then there's a tunnel curtain at the end. It actually raises up, and so all my air comes in down there and is pulled across the birds to keep them cool. Still no cool cells. We're a few weeks out from turning those on probably, but those will definitely get used this flock. I've got my feed off on the controller, but what I do here is I just go through it's pretty boring, but I'll go through, I pull my Turbo Grow out, and then I twist this little black piece, So that's the closed position, that's open there. There's a hole on the bottom of it, and so that just closes it to where the feed doesn't come out of that hole anymore. It just goes on to the next feed pan. So I'll walk around and do this house and then do my others as well. I like to pull my turbo grows out. It's real easy if you're not paying attention. If the turbo grows empty when I go to pull it up, I'll pull it out from under the feed line, and then it'll knock that black slide and maybe open it back up a little bit. Then when your feed runs again, it ends up running on the ground. So I just go ahead and pull it out, turn it off, then I know it's off and I'm not worried about it. I guess it's time for me to go through and pull these out. It's a good little workout. Get the heart rate up, get to sweating a little bit, but we're getting close to that time where you there's kind of a window there that I consider the cruise control of the flock. Towards the end of the flock, it's a pretty good chore to pick up the birds and, you know, go through them, making sure they're staying cool. But once we get these feeders pulled out, get them all picked up and put on the wall, then the labor side kind of goes down. We still go through every day, 2 laps in every house, pick up the dead birds. But at this age, you're not having as many dead typically. They're still pretty easy to walk through. So that's the cruise control part I talk about. You can see the birds are actually starting to get some of their feathers. Overall, they're looking pretty good. Got all the turbo grows turned off. It's a little warm in there. I've still got over a funnel of starter feed, so I'm expecting to run out of starter feed sometime tomorrow, and then I'll transition into grower feed. Usually, once I turn off these front feeders, it takes about 2 full days for all that feed to be eaten up. What we'll do is we'll go through tomorrow and combine some of them, go ahead and put some of them up, and then they'll finish them up the next day. And it'll be close to about when I'm also starting on grower feed, so that's why we go ahead and get those turned off. That way we don't have 2 days worth of starter feed sitting out there with grower feed in my feed pans. But tomorrow, more than likely, I'll be raising those feed lines, and so I can show you kind of what the process is there. And then after that, we can start putting in our other migration fences. It's finally time to go through and raise up my feed lines. My houses are ready to start on some grower feed. So I'll take my drill and raise them on up. There was a window here and now it is closed up. So that feed is no longer coming out of that window. It's actually coming out from under this yellow piece. So there's actually going to be less feed in the pans than what I was having. I'll try and round up an empty pan that I have and see, I'll just show y'all how that pan exactly works. But what I'm gonna do now is go through every 10 feet. There is a string and you can adjust it. Your floors aren't always completely level. So I'm gonna walk through and make sure that all the windows are closed up, but also that none of my feed lines are too high. I don't want my feed lines off the ground yet. So you can see there, they're still touching the ground. The chickens aren't old enough yet. I'll eventually start raising those on up more and more and more. But right now, I just want the window closed, but I want the feed line on the ground. As you can see, they're still working on those turbo grows. There's still some feed in those. We'll go through today and start combining those, and we'll probably have about half of those out, and then by tomorrow a majority, if not all those, should be empty and put up. So So you can probably see in some of those feed pans, you know, I mentioned the issue of the chickens scratching out feed when they're still in the flood. You also start reaching a point to where litter starts getting in the pans. So when you start seeing litter getting in the pans, usually it's a good sign that it's about time to raise them up. Under my end pans, I still have just a feed tray, and I leave it that way until about day 19 or 20. I want to make sure that the birds can easily get to that feed, because I'm dependent on them eating that feed and kicking that feed line on to keep all these feed pans fed. So usually about day 19 or 20, I'm getting to where the feed pans are no longer touching the ground. I've actually raised them up some. And so they'll start wasting too much feed at that end feed pan if I leave a feed tray under it. So I'm gonna finish walking this house, get all my houses done, and then once I've got all the feed lines raised up, adjusted where I want them, I'll turn my controller on full-time feeding, so it's no longer doing a mealtime feeding. If that end pan calls for feed, it's gonna feed regardless. So it's about 9:30 a.m. I've gone through and I've picked up all the chickens, and I'm just finishing up my feed lines. I'd like to get all this kind of work done early in the morning. We're supposed to hit about 95 degrees today, and so I don't want to be in here disturbing the birds, walking around, getting them all stirred up when it's 95 degrees out. I'd rather be doing it now. As you can see, I've already got 4 of my big fans running. It probably won't be too much longer that these will be, the vents will close up and they'll actually go into tunnel. You can see that window there wasn't quite closed up, so I raised it up just a little bit. So here's what I was talking about, which I did walk through them, but it's about 88 degrees in the front. Everything else is running 85, 86, level 14. I'm gonna crack that tunnel curtain a little bit more. So I do a transitional tunnel. So 15 is when it's full tunnel. Level 13 it cracks, level 14 it opens up a little bit more. And everything runs off static pressure, so as the tunnel opens more, the vents close more, because I'm wanting to maintain a certain static pressure. And so in doing that, it just dropped my static to about a 0.049. I'm running about a 0.08. And so here in a minute, the controller should recognize that and close my vents up some. We'll see if it does. So the vents closed up. They closed really slowly, but you can see now, it stopped right on a 0.08, 0.081. That's right where I want it. You can see how much darker the houses get, and then when the vents close all the way up, it's even darker in here. I don't have vent shades on the outsides of my houses. A lot of people do. They're nice sometimes, but I also like that the birds are getting more natural light, especially in the morning time or when they're younger, and these vents are opened on up. So I don't know. I don't know that I'll ever put them on, but some people really like them. On the flip side of that, sometimes if these vents are wide open and I drive my truck down the driveway out here, the reflection of the sun off the hood of my truck puts a light inside the houses, and sometimes it can kind of startle the birds. More so when the birds are younger and those vents are open more. not as much when they're older. But so that is one negative to not having the vent shades, I guess. But I'm gonna get my feed going. So these are all my feed programs, and I add those more and more as the birds get older. So I'm just gonna go do a day 14. Feed's kicked on, everything's running, get everything caught up, headed to the next house. So I'm down at the very front of my chicken houses, and I'm going to put my fences in today. Still have a few turbo feeders down. Most of them are just about empty and put back up on the wall. I can show you some of those stored up on the wall and kind of where they go. But the birds, like I've mentioned before, they tend to migrate down to this front end. It causes this zone to get warm. So I'm going to put my fences up. For this end, I don't have my Nose fences that I have in the middle. I have like the shelving material still. One day maybe I'll upgrade. But what I do is I'll go through and I'll start running some of these birds back. That way this section's not real full. If you overcrowd this section, eventually it's going to start getting really wet under the water line. So it's important to have the right amount of chickens down here. It always looks like there's not enough when you first put your fence up, but as the birds grow, it kind of looks a little more even. So I'm going to go through and get some of these birds out, and then I'm going to put my fence up. So there you have it. My fence is up. I usually go about 10 feet in front of where my tunnel ends. So that curtain in there, that's the tunnel that I was talking about, that as more fans come on, this will open up. So here's my fence. It's in 3 pieces, and I actually had some of the little plastic pieces from my middle fence from Nose. So I just bungee cord those underneath water lines and feed lines. Keep birds from going back and forth, because if you don't 100% block the birds, they're just going to go through your fence and come into the tunnel end, and then they'll be packed in here. So this is what we're looking like. These birds will spread back out. It looks like there's not enough birds in here, but like I said, usually you have to kind of start like that. And there are times that we'll go back and we'll move birds in, or we may have to move birds out, because it's just a guessing game to figure out how many to leave in here. But fences are up. It should really help keep this zone and the rest of the house more evenly as far as temperatures go. So got those up. My back fences aren't in yet. I don't know that I'll do that today, but in the next day or two I'll probably put those in. But I'll walk through and kind of show you some of these birds. So this is The uniformity in this house is pretty good. I'm in my house number 4. They're 16 days old. Mortality's looking good so far. We have had some pretty warm days. I think yesterday was about 95. My houses were reading about 92 in the back. All my fans were running, still no cool cells. What I do is I just keep a watch on the birds. As long as I don't see a bunch of birds panning, then I don't turn my cool cells on. I really don't want to use them at this age. I'll sometimes see birds venting a little bit, where they just kind of have their mouth open breathing. If that's the case, if I have another fan, I'll turn it on. If not, I just kind of rock with it. As they get older, you also see birds that'll lay down and kick a leg out to the side. So if you start seeing the leg kicked out, as well as some just panning birds, then I try to start doing something a little different. I'm doing my after lunch checks of the birds. One feed bin's getting a little low, so I opened up another one. My birds are 21 days old today. We've gotten through with all the starter feed stuff. They're fully on grower feed. All the turbo feeders have been picked up. We store those on the wall. I've had some pretty warm days here lately. So the birds are mostly running in tunnel during the day. They do come out of tunnel at night. So right now my set point is 76.5. It is 86.7 in here. A little cooler in the front. It tends to do that when they are in tunnel. It's about 83 degrees in the front and about 86 degrees in the back. As you can tell, the lights aren't nearly as bright as they were in the first week or so. Usually what I'll do, try not to interrupt the birds too much. See them starting to get up. So I'm just going through, checking all my feed lines, making sure they all have feed in them, hoppers. That switch hangs sometimes. You give it a little tap and it'll keep the fill system on. But everything looks good. These are some 3-week-old birds. So far in this house, we're placed right at 30,000, and through week 3, I've lost 907 birds in this house. Unless you have a big problem, each week gets better and better as far as mortality goes. For week 1 being the highest week, usually. We've had it before though, where the 3rd week and 4th week, it gets a lot worse, but does make for some long flocks. Everything's looking good so far. That's probably one of my better houses, but they all look pretty good. My number 1 house with the younger hen flock, you can tell they're a little bit behind. Somebody from Pilgrims will come out and they'll actually weigh these birds in about a week. So around day 28, they'll come get a weight, and then they'll also project what they think they'll go into the plant weighing. That just kind of gives them an idea of when they should catch the birds, how many trailers to send, how many birds they can process on that day, all that sort of stuff. So I'll find that out probably a week from today. They did come out today and did the blood and fat analysis, sent that off. So that's done. Mostly what I'm doing is just making sure that the birds are staying comfortable, staying fed. They've got plenty of water. Every couple days I'll go through, or probably every other day or so, I raise the water lines a little bit, raise the feed lines just a little bit. I did snap on all my end feed pans today. So I think I showed y'all earlier in the video, but under my end feed pan, there was a red tray. I took it off, and there is a metal red pan that snaps in now. So as I raise the feed lines up, that pan goes up with the feed lines, keeps feed from going everywhere, and also keeps them from wasting feed. But I'll show y'all some more videos throughout the rest of the flock, and then we'll eventually get to a catch out. I've got 2 more weeks with these birds, give or take a day or 2. So Hopefully things continue to stay smooth, doesn't get too awful hot. Still have not turned on my cool cells. Don't anticipate doing that through this week, but things could change. It all depends. On the high end, we're running in the very low 90s during the day. Some days are upper 80s or mid 80s, and then we've had more thunderstorms and pop-up showers here and there. So it hasn't been too awful hot on them. The afternoon thunderstorms can be a little bit stressful on the birds. You know, you can have power outages, and that's always stressful this time of year with chickens as they get older, making sure that the generator comes on. But also the drastic changes in temperature, especially if it's hot and then you have a storm and it cools everything off. But then if the sun pops back out and it gets real hot and real humid, those kind of ups and downs in the temperature can be a little bit stressful. But luckily we hadn't had too much of that. Most of our storms have come in late afternoon, so it doesn't really warm back up after that. But anyway, everything's looking good, and I'll keep y'all updated on the progress of this flock as we can.